Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
And now, Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
When I pop the trunk, head to death. Y'all pop the trunk, I pop the hood.
Now act stupid, I'll pop the trunk. Now give me your boom, boom, boom.
He is Jalen Rose.
What up, Doe?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
What do we do?
We give the people what they want.
Now, just because we are on ESPN2 at 2 p.m. and you need to record that and get that season series does not mean that we will ever neglect those that have been down with us on the podcast for 6 years. Jalen, I know we've sold out, but we will never, ever sell out so far that we will not keep giving the people what they want in the podcast space. What we plan to do is every day while we have this television show, we will record exclusive content just for our podcast listeners. Because we know y'all love us. The people that see us on TV, they're just switching channels. They watch for 4 minutes. But the people that listen to the podcast really care about us. Jalen, tell these people listening to this podcast, the people that actually care about us, that made us part of their daily routine, how we're going to continue to give them what they want.
We give the people what they want. We give the people what they need. Anytime you get a chance to not only hear a terrific podcast, but it has Redman in the intro, come on now, drop the mic.
Perfect. So don't forget, subscribe to the Jalen Jacoby podcast. Set your DVR series manager to record Jalen and Jacoby for the next 4 weeks on ESPN2 at 2 p.m., not 2 a.m. Also, don't forget, leave us reviews on iTunes. Rate us 5-star on iTunes as well, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Let's give the people what they want. The people want to know, Jalen Rose, is Ezekiel Elliott a habitual line stepper? There are reports, not too many details at this time, but there are some reports that he was involved in, you'll never believe it, a late-night altercation at a bar in Dallas. When you hear this news, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
First thing that comes to mind is rest in peace to the late, great Charlie Murphy. Because Ezekiel Elliott, as you accurately portrayed, has now officially become an habitual line stepper. Whether convicted or not, being involved in certain situations consistently have created a pattern. He was exonerated from a domestic violence situation as he was exiting college near the draft. During the preseason in Seattle as a rookie on game day, was spotted in a medicinal shop.
Just window shopping. Just wanted to see what the experience was like. You're just checking it out.
Well,
Nothing wrong with that.
You go, and then you tell your homies what to go back and get.
Allegedly.
That's really how that plays out.
Allegedly, that's how it plays out.
He was on the float. He flashed a young lady. I don't know if he ended up spending time with that young lady, but she did grab her shirt afterwards, like, not going to be able to do it. But
Didn't
either way,
good.
That's immature behavior by an adult. If somebody wants to be flashed, guess what? They should be able to do it on their own, not have an NFL running back do it for them. And lastly, again, at the nightclub, allegedly incident with the DJ. Now all of a sudden, Ezekiel Elliott's first game of the season versus the New York Giants may be in jeopardy.
It is one of those things where we don't know if he is at fault. We've all been out champagning and campaigning in late-night situations. There are times when you can be absolutely innocent and you still find yourself into an incident. However, with all of this history, with all of this going on, you know Des Bryant is looking at Ezekiel being like, they're about to have someone follow you. They're about to have someone follow you. They did the same thing to me. And now you're going to have that shadow in the background, that Jerry Jones hired shadow is going to be following you around everywhere you go. Can you just say it's just a different era now and that athletes and young men have been doing this type of thing for generations and decades? It's just different now that we find out about it?
It's not just different, David Jacoby, because the majority of football players are not getting themselves into incidents.
That's a great point.
There are over 1,300 players in the league. You see a few of them on the bottom of the ticker being in the wrong place at the wrong time and making poor decisions. Ezekiel Elliott seems to be finding himself into the latter category. And it's really unfortunate for a player that shows so much promise as a rookie. He and Dak Prescott set the league on fire as an amazing tandem. Hopefully he can find a way to keep his nose clean and focus on the most important thing that makes him get a check to play football.
Yeah, Dak is just, come on, Zeke. Dak is sitting there like, come on, Zeke. We got something good. We have an iconic duo. And we're going to move on to a brand new duo that has the potential to become iconic. As we know, Paul George is now on the Oklahoma City Thunder, joining Russell Westbrook. You said something off wax that I'm going to make you say on wax. You think that this might not be a one-year rental. Why do you think Paul George might stay in Oklahoma City?
I don't think this is a one-shot, one-kill thing.
Why?
When you look at it on paper, it's like Paul George was a member of the Indiana Pacers, and he said that he hoped to play for his hometown Los Angeles Lakers team. Mm-hmm. You see the Lakers draft Lonzo Ball, as I talked about them doing, trying to line it up possibly for LeBron James to go to the West Coast. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's also a Clutch Sports representative, signs a one-year, $18 million deal, and everything looks great. And then the Pacers and OKC upset the apple cart by trading a player who thrived in a small market like Indiana to one like Oklahoma City to join the league MVP who averaged a triple-double in Russell Westbrook, who's also from California. So now you have two guys that both rep Cali, that have played in small markets, that now all of a sudden are terrific, not only in their own right, but now really competitive to see how can we play against the Golden State Warriors. He talked about KD giving an endorsement to come back to OKC. They're paying attention to what's going on with the Houston Rockets. And also the Thunder, and big props to them. You lose James Harden, you lose Kevin Durant, and now you add Paul George. He will not be leaving Russell Westbrook. They probably aren't the best duo in the league, but they arguably are going to be the most exciting one for a really long time.
So you think after this year they'll have success together, the Thunder end up as maybe like a 4 seed or something like that, get into the second, third round of the playoffs, and then Paul George looks in the mirror and says, you know what? I like this. I like this team. I like this environment. I like my teammate. You find him signing an extension with the Thunder?
I do. He's not going to get on his main source and look at the front door and do like KD did in OKC. You see how those fans embraced him from day one? You see how he was taking it in, almost like when Shaquille O'Neal decided to leave Los Angeles and go to Miami, even though that wasn't his choice, it was Dr. Jerry Buss's. It gave me that level of enthusiasm from a player that makes me feel like that he's going to thrive there and be able to do it for a really long time.
Jalen Rose, another thing that you've been saying off wax and here on this show for a long time, picked up some steam last week when you spoke to Richard Sherman about it. You've been saying that NFL players need to strike to get their rights, to get guaranteed contracts, to have a new CBA. Richard Sherman agreed with you. And now we have Cardinals running back David Johnson also saying that there's a potential for a strike and that NFL players need guaranteed contracts. Did you low-key just start a movement for a strike in the NFL?
I hope so. I've talked about this for the last couple of years, how when you watch the NBA and the NFL, they're at a stoplight. One's in a Lamborghini and the other's in a minivan. And when the light changes...
Hey, no minivan slander. No minivan slander.
You like that one, didn't
you?
You like that.
The minivan mafia. The minivan mafia stands together against Jalen Rose.
Shout out. And when you see players... And I love this for the NBA because, again, it's head-scratching and cultural. We'll get into that another day. While these are the only two sports that have salary caps, that have length of contract limits, restrictions after high school, punished for marijuana. These are also the two sports that are the most popular in American society. So when I see NBA players that have never been an all-star, that have never played in a playoff game, that can walk down the street and you don't know who they are, making more money than the lion's share of NFL players, it makes me look back at the history of both leagues and how the NBA, when they wanted change, we struck multiple times. And we still have a long way to go to ultimately, I guess, catch up to baseball, which no league, I think, will do. The NFL, in order for them to get that level of respect from the owners and from the league, the only way you're going to get it, how about this? If week one they look at each other and say, we're not playing today. Do you realize the kind of change you'll get? Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and all of a sudden he's out of the NFL. Imagine if the NFL players stuck together and decided that they should strike for the rights that I feel they deserve. Those contracts might as well be written on toilet paper, and it's become a mockery.
I think that I agree with you. I think that the NFL players definitely deserve changes to the CBA that is up after the 2020 season. I think they should strike. However, when you talk about them not playing on week one, all I can think of is this. What about my fantasy team? What does that do for my fantasy team? How's that? We got to get the commissioner on the phone. How does that work?
Shout out.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Jalen, can you believe they put us on ESPN2 in the afternoon?
You know what? Initially, when I saw the email, I thought it was 2 a.m.
I thought it was a typo. Yeah, I thought it was a typo. It's like, oh, we're putting them on at 2 p.m.? I'm a little nervous. The executives are awake at 2 p.m. That's a concern.
I am.
Let's not
Normally, we able to
overthink
come
it.
through like bruh man on Martin with our feet on the desk, unprofessional, unprepared.
Let's keep it tight. One thing we do on this show for the uninitiated is we evaluate teams based on their expectations. Success is just a function of expectations. The Houston Rockets have upgraded their roster. They've added CP3. There's rumors of them adding other superstars. They've also added Luka Mbamute. What do you see as the realistic expectations this season for this new look Houston Rockets?
First and foremost, the NBA offseason is on fire. I'm so excited each time I acknowledge a team that's actually making moves to improve their rosters and put themselves in a position and be more excited for this upcoming year. And big props to the Houston Rockets, their ownership, as well as their general manager, Daryl Morey, because he's been able to recruit all-star level players to come play with their team, including Mike D'Antoni, who helped take their offensive prowess to another level. James Harden's game has taken off to the point where he was second in the MVP race. He had a historic season. And now, all of a sudden, this offseason, you get Chris Paul to lead the Los Angeles Clippers, where he's played a handful of years, and you team those guys up together to play for the Rockets. I truly appreciate what they've gotten accomplished, and because of that, they will be a team that makes a lot of noise, clearly, not only in the West, but in the entire league next year.
So like we always said, happiness is a function of expectation. So I'm going to set the bar for them, where if they're below it, they're going to consider this season a bit of a failure. If they're above it, the season is success. And here's where the bar is. Lose to the Warriors in 6 games. Regardless of whether that's in the conference finals or wherever that is, like, the bar is basically we need to go 6 against the Warriors. If we lose to the Spurs, if we lose to the Thunder, if we lose to any other team in the Western Conference, this season is not a success. Do you think that is a fair place to set the bar, to set their expectations?
I agree with you, and I love the way you teed this up. We always talk about gauging success based on realistic expectations. And in the Eastern Conference, the only team that's going to show up and say, if we don't win the championship, this year's a bust, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. In the Western Conference, the only team that's going to say that are the Spurs, because they've done it, and clearly the Warriors, because they're the defending champions. Everyone else can have a level of success, making it to the NBA Finals, making it to the conference finals. And I love what you did there for the Rockets. It's not being swept by the Golden State Warriors. It's not losing to any other team. It's putting up a competitive fight against Golden State. And therefore, I agree with you. I like where you set their bar.
So that is how the team is currently constructed. There have been rumors, and even Carmelo Anthony himself is reportedly assuming that he is going to be traded to the Houston Rockets. So let's go down the hypothetical highway. If this team adds Carmelo Anthony, loses like an Anderson-Gordon combo, something like that, would you then change their expectations? Can they compete with the Warriors?
I'll get on my DeBarge and say, ooh, and I like it. But it really doesn't change the bar much. And adding Carmelo Anthony, a guy that's going to be a 20-plus point scorer, with two creators. James Harden was putting up historic assist numbers, leading the league. A lot of people underestimate that. And we know Chris Paul has been an ultimate floor general, basically flirting with 18 and 9 and a couple of steals, which only a handful of players have done in the history of the game. So Melo's going to be like, catch, run, finish, layup, dunk. And he's not going to have to massage the basketball like Adrian Dantley every time before he actually puts himself in a position to get a high percentage shot. But it still doesn't change the fact who's going to play consistent minutes late at the 5. I like the emergence of Capella.
I love Capella.
I know they re-signed Nene, but when you play against the Golden State Warriors, they have Draymond Green playing that spot. And he's an all-NBA defender and an all-NBA performer. He's the guy that continues to not only tip the apple cart up front, but clearly KD, Finals MVP, Splash Brothers in the backcourt. We're not talking about their moves because they didn't make any changes. They only re-signed KD, Steph, Iguodala, Livingston. That's all they've
Finals
done.
MVPs. That's what they do.
The bar that you set is one that I agree with, but one name that doesn't get discussed enough in the Rockets dynamic that I'm going to be watching. You may lose Anderson. You may lose Gordon. They spread the floor because they don't just shoot threes. They shoot them
Deep
2 or
threes.
3 feet beyond the 3 line. Trevor Ariza, they need to find a way to keep him. A two-way threat, guards multiple positions, make open threes. If they have to lose him, I don't like the overall composition of what they're going to try to get accomplished.
Now, one of the things that's important to any duo working together is chemistry. I always tell my wife, listen, I have to go out tonight with Jalen because it's good for the show. It's good for our chemistry. Apparently, James Harden and Chris Paul feel the same way. They were together at a Kendrick concert, enjoying themselves, taking video of themselves, posting on social media. What does them hanging out together tell you about the potential chemistry of these two stars?
Really what it tells me is while James Harden played with Dwight Howard, it seemed like they weren't breaking bread. While Chris Paul was playing with Blake and DeAndre, they weren't breaking bread. So it just shows me that they're more like-minded, and they're showing us that they're going to not only kick it on the floor clearly and try to take the Rockets dynamic to another level, but break bread off of it. That's the chemistry that you're talking about. That's why you see them show up for public consumption the way they did.
You mentioned earlier Dale Morey, one of my favorite GMs in the league. Great hang. Shout to him. He is feeling himself. He's making these moves. He's the talk of the town. And he might be feeling himself a little too much. Here's what he had to say about this duo of CP3 and James Harden. Quote, "No one has ever put two players this smart, this complimentary on the same team." Jalen, are you buying what Dale Morey is selling?
I like to look deeper than Atlantis, into people's comments.
Okay.
And as I peel back the onion, this isn't about James Harden and CP3. Because we all know that they're not the most quote-unquote intelligent duo to ever play basketball together, who, by the way, haven't played a game yet.
No.
This is about the architect. This is about him adding the part of being put together. Who put them together?
Me.
That's who.
Me. I love it. Listen, there's nothing wrong with tooting your own horn, patting yourself on the back. We do it a lot on this show, too. You know, like, there's nothing wrong with that, making yourself part of the headlines. He's not going to be taking the floor. This is his season. This is his NBA Finals right now, constructing this team. And I'm glad you brought up the big position, because if you look at the way that this team's constructed, could you see them go small? Could you see them against the Warriors not put Nene or Capella on the floor?
Yes, because late in games for the Golden State Warriors, they don't want Zaza or JaVale McGee playing those quality minutes. So they're able to do that, but again, it's because you have Draymond Green at 6'7" that can guard bigger players, grab and go from the board, be first or second in the team in both rebounds and or assists, and all of a sudden you're off on a fast break, and that's become something that has been a terror for the league the last couple of years. So when you're the Houston Rockets, you can go smaller, but the problem is who's going to rim protect? You say KD, a lot of times if he's the tallest player on the floor, plus a guy that can shoot with unlimited range, there's no intimidation to stop these guys from driving to the basket. So in theory, it seems like it gives you a better chess piece in order to compete. And of course, it creates a faster game, more tempo, more shots. It gives you a puncher's chance. But no rim protection, nobody to be a physical intimidation in the paint at all does not deter the Golden State Warriors at all.
So in conclusion, at Jalen Jacoby, we always set realistic expectations for these teams, especially the new teams that are constructed. And we find that if the Warriors lose, if the Rockets lose to the Warriors in 6, they'll be happy. If they lose in 5, they will not. That's where we're setting our expectations. And set your expectations for this show very low. We've sold all the way out here on Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN2. But one thing we will never stop doing is playing our favorite game. It's called Soft Move or Boss Move. It needs no explanation. First, we have this. LeBron James working out. You'll never believe this. He's not wearing a shirt. I don't think LeBron James has put on a shirt since he wore the Cleveland uniform in the finals. But he's not only working out without a shirt. He is dancing with himself, looking in the mirror, listening to the Migos, wearing those compression tights and only those compression tights. Jalen Rose, wearing tights and only tights while working out. Soft move or boss move?
If other people are present, in particular strangers, soft move.
It's a soft move, Jalen. I know you. You would never, ever, 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 ever even put on those tights, let alone wear them outside of your own house.
And the reason why I say that, because, of course, he's a professional athlete, one of the most athletic players in the history of any sport, and he's in tremendous shape. However, put on a shirt, LeBron.
Put on a shirt, LeBron. Also,
and
just wear the tights. Like, we don't need to see all of that. You're not going to wear. No one's ever been like, man, this workout would have been so much better if I didn't have these shorts on. These shorts are just so constricting, I can't get a proper workout. Like, you can't sell me that this is a performance thing. This is a fashion thing. LeBron, I get it. You're in great shape. We all know that. Just put a shirt on. Put some shorts on. You know what I mean? We don't need to see all that. We don't need to see all that at all. That's for Savannah. Save that for Savannah. Just when you're posting things on social media, just put a shirt on, please.
Is LeBron thirst trapping?
A little bit. You know that Rihanna liked every post. Every shirtless post, you know Rihanna's the first one to like it. We all know that's happening. And next we have this. We all heard about Derek Jeter and Michael Jordan coming together with this group, this consortium that's going to buy the Marlins and change it. Well, there's some more details that I found very interesting. Derek Jeter apparently wants 100% control of all of the baseball decisions, even though he is even only putting in a much smaller percentage of the money. Wanting full control while not putting in full money. Is that a soft move or boss move from Derek Jeter?
That's a boss move, no question about it. Just look at it like this. All of the investors, who are they?
Michael Jordan and rich people.
Okay. Any baseball expertise? Are we actually purchasing the team to build a roster to win baseball games?
Well, obviously you forgot that Michael Jordan is a professional baseball player, just like Derek Jeter.
What? How about you have Derek Jeter as the owner, a part of that group that is making 100% of those decisions, who the president or the GM should be, the roster moves. What better person to be in that role? If you're Derek Jeter, you ain't about to invest your money with all of these business dudes and they come telling you who should play third base. You're looking at them like they're crazy.
Yep. You know, every day we do this show, and every day there's one story on the rundown that I really, really care about. That story today is this next story, and I cannot wait to discuss it with you. In Raleigh, North Carolina, an American Airlines plane was cleared out, I believe, before it even took off. Now, the airline has denied this, but there was reported that after the incident was investigated, it was determined that a passenger passed gas, and the odor led to the passengers being led off the plane. Clearing out a plane with your flatulence. Soft move or boss move?
That's a soft move.
Oh, that's a boss move. What are you even talking about? That is a boss move.
I knew you would go there.
I would get the date tattooed on my face if I ever cleared out a plane with my own flatulence. That is a badge of honor. That is a story that you tell your grandkids. How is that a soft move?
Correct. And that's why I enjoy doing this program with you, because I just threw you a lob like Gary Payton or Sean Kemp, and you caught it. For those that have followed this program for almost 6 years, you're probably looking over both of our shoulders like, man, those pictures are a little bit different of the immortals. What happens to the old ones? Well, David Jacoby, one day in the studio, let off one of those.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Let's
move on.
Cleared out the studio.
No, we
had
gotta
to
move
change
on.
all
We gotta
the
move
pictures.
on. No, we gotta move on. We gotta up there telling me on my ear that we have to move on. I'm sorry. Terrell Owens, not Hall of Famer Terrell Owens, is now pleading that Ice Cube allow him to play in the Big Three. Trying to get into the Big Three when you're an NFL player. Soft move or boss move?
It's a boss move. I talked to T.O. about this at the ESPYs.
Okay.
I'm supposed to be a beacon between him and O'Shea Jackson in this conversation to see if he could be a participant. Now, because it's about...
Jalen, I'm going to ask a simple question. You told him that you would reach out to O'Shea Jackson. Have you sent a single text to Ice Cube regarding Terrell Owens since you told Terrell Owens you would do so?
Today's Monday. Ice Cube have games this weekend. I was going to do it today.
That's a no. That's a no.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
There's a lot going on in the world of sports, but there is nothing more important than Mark Richt explaining how he eats a sandwich.
If you cut that sandwich like that, all right, this is bite one. All right, this is bite two. And I probably should have made it a little bit bigger. Bite three is right here.
Okay.
That's a good bite. It's like the fillet of the sandwich.
It's arranged. The
All
ingredients
right,
are
then you
arranged.
turn it sideways, and you take bite four. So you got 1, 2, 3, and then probably 4, I would say, and then 5. Then if you repeat the process, that's a 10-bite sandwich.
If this man approaches eating a sandwich with this level of detail and pre-production and strategy, there is no way that Miami loses a football game this year. Do you agree that the Miami Hurricanes will be undefeated based on Mark Richt's sandwich-eating philosophy?
I bleed maize and blue, but everybody knows I rep the U to the fullest. Even look back at the Fab Five documentary when I'm rocking a U crew neck. But with that being said, this is clearly cultural.
What?
I am not interested in any way, shape, or form about how many times an individual is going to cut a sandwich before he eats it.
Jalen, I need a new co-host because this means everything to me. This means everything to me. And you know what you said on this show one time? You said you have never cut a sandwich in your life. That's insane. Not only does Mark Richt agree with me that diagonal cut is the appropriate way to cut a sandwich, he's got a strategy for the post-cut approach. And then he called one of my favorite parts. We're going to move on because I know you don't want to talk about this. One of my favorite parts is he called, this is the fillet of the sandwich right here. Like, not only does he eat the sandwich in a certain way every time, he's got bites that he prefers over others. I cannot wait until one day you're out and Mark Richt comes and joins this show with me. And it's Mark Richt and Jacoby on ESPN2 at 2. Next.
Oh, you going to put his name first? Your name should be first.
No. I like being second, because it's the last one that we say. Jalen and Jacoby. I can punch it harder. Everybody is talking about Lonzo Ball and how well he's performing in Summer League. He had 16 and 10, little tightness in his calf, so he didn't play that much in the second half. Another good performance from him. But all anyone talks about are his sneakers. First, he started with the Big Baller brand sneakers. Swapped those out for some Nikes. Swapped those out for some Adidas. Swapped those out for some Under Armour. Now he swapped those out for some Jordans. The championship is tonight. I don't know whether he's got some Lottos or some Avias or Filas or what he's going to go with. But what do you feel about his approach of wearing all these different types of sneakers?
I love ownership. And it continues to give leverage to the Big Baller brand as long as he continues to be a free agent. As long as they take the time to get their product up to par, when he continues to barnstorm and play in multiple different gym shoes. You're asking the right person about this. As I see Huaraches being sold 20 years ago and today, I see a brand Jordan Fat 5 shoe being sold. Imagine if we got royalties
Oh,
for
wait.
this.
You guys don't get a penny from any of that?
So because of that, I am supportive of the approach of the Ball family and how they're dealing with the shoe companies.
Jalen Rose, Rajon Rondo has found a basketball home in New Orleans with the Pelicans. He signed a one-year deal to join the Pelicans. How do you think he will fit in with Boogie and AD and Drew Holiday?
Relationships matter in this case. Rajon Rondo, championship-level player with the Boston Celtics, had clearly some turbulence in a couple of stops, in particular Dallas, found ways to rejuvenate himself as a member of the Chicago Bulls, in particular around the second half of the year and the playoffs, to the point, had he not gotten injured, I think they eliminate the Boston Celtics from the playoffs. Now for him to be a member of the Pelicans, he's familiar clearly with his former Kentucky alums. Anthony Davis played with Boogie Cousins in Sacramento. Drew Holiday got a big deal in the offseason. It continues to give them players that can make those around them better, plus have a level of being just a veteran. Because when you watch New Orleans over the last couple of years, they were pretty stout at the positions that I mentioned, but they struggled to find people that could play quality minutes that have been productive in the league.
Absolutely. And I think that Rajon Rondo is an excellent basketball player, and I think he's the type of player the Pelicans need. They don't need someone else who's going to score the basketball. They need someone who's going to distribute the basketball, and Rajon Rondo does that. However, as you mentioned, Rajon Rondo didn't end well in Dallas with him and Rick Carlisle. And then in Boston, let's not forget, there was this divide in the locker room between Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler and the rest of the team. There's the social media post that Rajon put out there. And with just how combustible Boogie Cousins is as a personality, is there any concern that perhaps there's some sort of divide in the locker room that he could buddy up with Rajon Rondo and they could kind of create some sort of tension there?
I don't think so, because that previous relationship does matter. And the things that he was upset with Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler about were things from the outside looking in, you kind of agreed with him. So with that being said, at some point it seemed like the organization, the coaching staff, and those players came around to his way of thinking, not the other way around.
Well, we'll see how it plays out. I'm excited that Rajon Rondo is playing in the National Basketball Association. Yep. In February, Broncos wide receiver Corey Latimer attempted to get into an adult establishment in Ohio. Well, it was a long time ago, but TMZ has just released the video. In the video, you see Latimer slap a bouncer in the face and then get punched in the face himself, and then his uncle gets knocked out. In the history of the human species, has it ever been a good idea to physically assault a bouncer?
It's not, because they're clearly there to protect the best interests of the premises and physically able to disarm somebody that's trying to go against their will. That's exactly what they're paid to do. So for you to get so upset because you can't get in for any way, shape, or form, all you got to do is jump in the Uber and go somewhere else.
Just go home. Just go home. Go anywhere else. Next, we have this. One of my favorite emerging rappers is Schoolboy Q from Los Angeles. He's a great rapper. If you're not familiar, look him up. He's great. He had his dog on a flight. His dog was supposed to meet him in Los Angeles. However, United Airlines sent his adorable dog to Chicago. What would you do if an airline sent your dog to the wrong city?
There are a lot of animal lovers out there. I'm one as well, but I travel so much, so therefore it's almost cruelty for me, based on my schedule, to put a dog on and off a plane, in or out of a kennel. So I would be, just like I'm sure he was, very upset, very disappointed, and very angry with the airline, no different than how I would behave if they lost my luggage. The exact same thing.
One thing that you do that rich people do is don't pack that much luggage, because you just buy clothes when you get there. That is rich people and rich people only. I just want to put that out there. And finally, we have this. Chance the Rapper is in talks to potentially host a reboot of the Def Poetry Jam. We all remember that series. Jalen, are you excited for a reboot of Def Poetry Jam?
I like it a lot, because a lot of times rappers, and Jay-Z talk about this in 444, they don't get the level of respect for their ability to write and be poets beyond the music. So I always appreciated this show and the idea, and I'm glad potentially that it's going to come back.
So, Jalen Rose, now that we're on at 2 p.m. instead of 2 a.m., that shifts our entire day earlier. How does that change your approach?
It doesn't change it much because I love doing the show earlier the better. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that we're going to be able to put out a podcast for our followers in the afternoon as opposed to late.
That's a
night.
Really good point. If you listen to this podcast, you're so used to us uploading the podcast at midnight, you wake up and have a fresh one, but sometimes it feels like yesterday's news. That's always been on our mind. So now, if Reggie actually does his work, which you never know, we will have the podcast up for you for your commute home from work. I'm going to say it'll probably be up around 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern. So now you'll get today's information today from Jalen Jacoby. Yep. Another thing about this change, Jalen, that I'm a little concerned about. I might have to parent in the afternoon, you know, because my wife is going to see that the show's over at 3 p.m., right? So I'm going to have, so she's going to be like, so when are you coming home? I'm going to be like 7 o'clock at night. She's going to be like, well, what are you doing for those 4 hours? I'm going to be like, well, preparing for the next day's show, working out. Like I don't know, but I'll be home at 7 because the twins go to bed at 6, so I gotta get home after that. And I know she doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can say this very freely.
Well, you have time to play basketball. Mm-hmm. You have time to get an executive, steam, shower, massage, rinse, and repeat. And also, we get a chance to go over the rundown for tomorrow's show.
Good
and
point.
Recap what we talked about on today's show.
That's very important. I'm going to use that. I'm going to say exactly that. I'm going to say Jalen and I need to spend some time together to work on tomorrow's show and to recap what we did today and have a couple beers. It's very important to the success of the program, Joey. It's very important. But we will always continue to do our best to give the podcast listeners exclusive content and to not sell out completely. But we're going to kind of sell out. Come on. Yep. All right. We have a simple motto on this program, Jalen. What's our motto?
Got to give the people what they want.
More succinctly, we give the people what they want. Part of giving the people what they want is opening up the various ways you can communicate with the show and finding out what the people want. If you hit us up on Twitter, that is at Jalen and Jacoby. You can also leave us a voicemail by calling 985-80-JALEN. And more importantly, join our subreddit. Go to reddit.com/r/Jalen and Jacoby. There's a community of people there that we troll and we pull questions from. And our first question comes from our Twitter feed. The question is from David. He says, what else will the Celtics do this offseason to become a true contender? Interesting. It looks to me, as the Celtics are constructed, they're certainly a contender for the Eastern Conference Championship, but David thinks they need to do more. What would you do?
The Boston Celtics have put themselves in one of the more unique positions of a productive team that we've seen in a really long time. Props to Danny Ainge, building his team through the draft, fleecing the Phoenix Suns for Isaiah Thomas, who's become an all-star level player, signing Al Horford while he was still playing at that level from the Atlanta Hawks outright. So all of a sudden you become something nobody felt you could this season. The number 1 seed over LeBron James and the Cavs in the Eastern Conference.
It's easy to forget that.
And you know what ended up happening? No question. And then so much so, you get the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And so now you look back at your hand and like, I have assets. So you trade back, you draft Tatum, who seemed to be a terrific offensive player, can get it off the dribble, play mid-range. He's going to be able to create some balance for a team that only had 1 player score over 1,000 points last season. But you lose Avery Bradley.
Yep.
That can't be overstated. I always felt like he was their second most important player because he improved offensively and he locked down defensively. So that will be a loss. So now you go into the offseason and you add Gordon Hayward, another all-star level player, a 20-point scorer. Your backcourt now all of a sudden has a jolt of offense that not many teams can combat. But you still have to find somebody that's going to play quality minutes up front alongside Al Horford. You lose Olynyk, and when you can't protect the paint and or the rim in today's game, yes, the three-point shot looks good, and you see teams shooting 35 to 45% of their shots from long range. But when you can't deter teams from driving to the basket, they're going to be able to match your buckets. So that's what I think they should be trying to do. Find a way to create that level of balance up front.
They lost Amir Johnson. They lost Olynyk. Not two of the best players in the league, but still, they did not need to get more thin up front. They had a problem rebounding the basketball, not just in the regular season, but also in the playoffs. I love what they've done adding Gordon Hayward, but they definitely need a rebounder, shot blocker, rim protector type to make this a championship-level team. And one thing that people overlook on the Celtics, I had to Google this, Isaiah Thomas makes a very, very small amount of money, which allows them to have the roster they have. But his contract is also up after this year. The Celtics are going to have to do some financial reshuffling if they want to keep the current core. Our next question comes from Reddit. Again, reddit.com/r/Jalen Jacoby. The whole production staff, including myself, are all over this Reddit community, so please join us there. This is from the Dime Factory. They want to know, what can my Bulls do to at least try to play 500 basketball this season? Off-season move, plan to try to win, or should they just tank for picks? And I think that he gets down to a core issue in the NBA right now. Do you want to be in the middle? The Bulls right now have a pretty good team. They've got some pieces. They've got Zach LaVine. They've got Mirotic. They've got some people, Dwayne Wade, that can get them some wins, especially in the Eastern Conference. But do they want to get better, or do the Bulls want to get worse, is I think this question.
You always want to get better, especially for a franchise that has a championship-level pedigree. They got a chance, their fans got a chance to see a team trot out Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil on the sideline, Dennis Rodman. That's going to be a high-level expectation. Markkanen is going to surprise a lot of people as a rookie. I think he's really going to be a productive player. Absolutely. Zach LaVine, I'm a big-time fan of his since back in college. When you win the dunk contest, sometimes people think that that's your game. And people underestimate the fact that he was actually a 20-point scorer with Minnesota last year. But when you lose Jimmy Butler, your all-star level player, you now put yourselves in a position to look at the other teams and say, high-level competitive teams have all-star level players, at least one. Those that now become a team that can be middle of the pack have two. Elite level teams have three or more. So that's what the Bulls have to try to do. See if one of these players on their roster that is under a rookie contract can now become an all-star level player.
So remember, you can send questions into our Twitter feed. You can join us in the subreddit. You can also call 985-80-JALEN and leave us voicemails, and we'll play them on the show just like this.
Jalen and Jacoby, this is JD in Seattle. I think Conor McGregor has a good chance of winning this fight, and here's why. He could potentially do some things in the ring Floyd's never seen and isn't game planning for. Boxing is a chess match, right? So let me draw a parallel for you. There have been professional chess players that have lost to amateurs because they play so unorthodox and use openings and techniques that aren't commonly used by other pros. Conor's going to come out throwing punches from unconventional angles, and what happens if he messes around and throws a Superman punch or a spinning back fist? Floyd ain't never seen anything like that before. What are your guys' thoughts?
Big shout to JD in Seattle. I love his philosophy, the chess thing, the professionals losing to amateurs and all that. But, Jalen, let's be honest. Conor's got no shot. You're going to throw a spinning back fist? That's what you're going to do? That's your plan?
When you go back and look at the footage of the press conference at the Staples Center from your Seattle residence, I want you to acknowledge that there was somebody standing on the stage that was a little bit taller than everybody else. And he happens to work on this program. Up close and personal, following this fight each moment. Because the enthusiasm is going to happen at the press conference, via tweets, the introductions, the music, the national anthem. I'm already hearing rumbles that Conor McGregor getting dropped in training. Okay? He's not had a professional boxing fight. It has not taken place. Floyd is undefeated. 49 times he's been in the ring and has not lost. and the strength of his game is defense. So you mean to tell me Conor McGregor is going to get in the ring and throw a Superman punch to knock out Floyd Mayweather?
No, spinning back fist too.
If anything, we're going to get Floyd's signature Tyson Burbeck type KO. That has a better chance to happening than Conor McGregor actually winning this bout.
Now, the next question comes from our Twitter feed. It's Kobe Goat, and this guy really understands the ethos of this show. Soft move or boss move, sneaking a whole dinner into the movie with you. There's a couple things. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. This is clearly a boss move with some caveats. Number one, can't be it can't be like the release night where you know the theater's going to be packed. Number two, no fish allowed, okay? Can't have a stinky dinner. I've done this many, many times where I've brought in sandwiches, Italian subs, chicken parms, pizza slices, but one thing you cannot do is bring stinky food into the theater. Jalen, do you sneak food into the movie theater?
Absolutely, sneak food into the movie theater. You can't bring seafood either. Has a large aroma. However, you can't bring so much food to the point where you don't enjoy the popcorn and the nachos.
Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, to our loyal supporters. Don't forget, we're on ESPN2 at 2 p.m. for the next 4 weeks, so make sure you tune into that. And as always, we will sell out, but we will never disrespect our podcast listeners. Tune in tomorrow.
We out.